I am number 4. By Pittacus Law. Chapter 1. In the beginning there were 9 of us. We left when we were young, almost too young to remember. Almost? I am told the ground shook. That the skies were full of light and explosions. We were in that 2-week period of the year when both moons hang on opposite sides of the horizon. It was a time of celebration, and the explosions were at first mistaken for fireworks. They were not. It was warm. A soft wind blew in from off the water. I am always told the weather, it was warm. There was a soft wind. I've never understood why that matters. What I remember most vividly is the way my grandmother looked that day. She was frantic. And sad. There were tears in her eyes. My grandfather stood just over her shoulder. I remember the way his glasses gathered the light from the sky. There were hugs. There were words said by each of them. I don't remember what they were. Nothing haunts me more. It took a year to get here. I was 5 when we arrived. We were to assimilate ourselves into the culture before returning to Lorien when it could again sustain life. The 9 of us had to scatter, and go our own ways. For how long? Nobody knew. We still don't. None of them know where I am, and I don't know where they are, or what they look like now. That is how we protect ourselves because of the charm that was placed upon us when we left, a charm guaranteeing that we can only be killed in the order of our numbers, so long as we stay apart. If we come together, then the charm is broken. When one of us is found and killed, a circular scar wraps around the right ankle of those still alive. And residing on our left ankle, formed when the Lorien charm was first cast, is a small scar identical to the amulet each of us wears. The circular scars are another part of the charm. A warning system so that we know where we stand with each other, and so that we know when they'll be coming for us next. The first scar came when I was 9 years old. It woke me from my sleep, burning itself into my flesh. We were living in Arizona, in a small border town near Mexico. I woke screaming in the middle of the night, in agony, terrified as the scar seared itself into my flesh. It was the first sign that the Mogadorians had finally found us on Earth, and the first sign that we were in danger. Until the scar showed up, I had almost convinced myself that my memories were wrong, that what Henry told me was wrong. I wanted to be a normal kid living a normal life, but I knew then, beyond any doubt or discussion, that I wasn't. We moved to Minnesota the next day. The second scar came when I was 12. I was in school, in Colorado, participating in a spelling bee. As soon as the pain started I knew what was happening, what had happened to number 2. The pain was excruciating, but bearable this time. I would have stayed on the stage, but the heat lit my sock on fire. The teacher who was conducting the bee sprayed me with a fire extinguisher and rushed me to the hospital. The doctor in the ER found the first scar and called the police. When Henry showed, they threatened to arrest him for child abuse. But because he hadn't been anywhere near me when the second scar came, they had to let him go. We got in the car and drove away, this time to Maine. We left everything we had. Except for the Lorien chest that Henri brought along on every move. All 21 of them to date. The third scar appeared an hour ago. I was sitting on a pontoon boat. The boat belonged to the parents of the most popular kid at my school, and unbeknownst to them, he was having a party on it. I had never been invited to any of the parties at my school before. I had always, because I knew we might leave at any minute, kept to myself. But it had been quiet for 2 years. Henry hadn't seen anything in the news that might lead the Mogadorians to one of us, or might alert us to them. So I made a couple friends. And one of them introduced me to the kid who was having the party. Everyone met at a dock. There were 3 coolers, some music, girls I had admired from afar but never spoken to, even though I wanted to. We pulled out from the dock and went half a mile into the Gulf of Mexico. I was sitting on the edge of the pontoon with my feet in the water, talking to a cute, dark-haired, blue-eyed girl named Tara. When I felt it coming, the water around my leg started boiling, and my lower leg started glowing where the scar was embedding itself. The third of the Lorien symbols. The third warning. Tara started screaming and people started crowding around me. I knew there was no way to explain it. And I knew we would have to leave immediately. The stakes were higher now. They had found number 3. Wherever he or she was. And number 3 was dead. So I calmed Tara down and kissed her on the cheek and told her it was nice to meet her and that I hoped she had a long beautiful life. I dove off the side of the boat and started swimming, underwater the entire time, except for one breath about halfway there, as fast as I could until I reached the shore. I ran along the side of the highway, just inside of the tree line, moving at speeds as fast as any of the cars. When I got home, Henry was at the bank of scanners and monitors that he used to research news around the world, and police activity in our area. He knew without me saying a word, though he did lift my soaking pants to see the scars. In the beginning we were a group of 9. 3 are gone, dead. There are 6 of us left. They are hunting us, and they won't stop until they've killed us all. I am number 4. I know that I am next. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2. I stand in the middle of the drive and stare up at the house. It is light pink, almost like cake frosting, sitting 10 feet above the ground on wooden stilts. A palm tree sways in the front. In the back of the house a pier extends 20 yards into the Gulf of Mexico. If the house were a mile to the south, the pier would be in the Atlantic Ocean. Henry walks out of the house carrying the last of the boxes, some of which were never unpacked from our last move. He locks the door, then leaves the keys in the mail slot beside it. It is 2 o'clock in the morning. He is wearing khaki shorts and a black polo. He is very tan, with an unshaven face that seems downcast. He is also sad to be leaving. He tosses the final boxes into the back of the truck with the rest of our things. "That's it," he says. I nod. We stand and stare up at the house and listen to the wind come through the palm fronds. I am holding a bag of celery in my hand. "I'll miss this place," I say. "Even more than the others." "Me too." "Time for the burn?" "Yes." "You want to do it, or you want me to?" "I'll do it." Henry pulls out his wallet and drops it on the ground. I pull out mine and do the same. He walks to our truck and comes back with passports, birth certificates, social security cards, checkbooks, credit cards and bank cards, and drops them on the ground. All of the documents and materials related to our identities here, all of them forged and manufactured. I grab from the truck a small gas can he keep for emergencies. I pour the gas over the small pile. My current name is Daniel Jones. My story is that I grew up in California and I moved here because of my dad's job as a computer programmer. Daniel Jones is about to disappear. I light a match and drop it, and the pile ignites. Another one of my lives, gone. As we always do, Henry and I stand and watch the fire. "Bye, Daniel," I think, "it was nice knowing you." When the fire burns down, Henry looks over at me. "We gotta go." "I know. These islands were never safe. They're too hard to leave quickly, too hard to escape from. It was foolish of us to come here." I nod. He is right, and I know it. But I'm still reluctant to leave. We came here because I wanted to, and for the first time, Henry let me choose where we were going. We've been here 9 months, and it's the longest we have stayed in any one place since leaving Lorien. I'll miss the sun and the warmth. I'll miss the gecko that watched from the wall each morning as I ate breakfast. Though there are literally millions of geckos in South Florida, I swear this one follows me to school and seems to be everywhere I am. I'll miss the thunderstorms that seem to come from out of nowhere, the way everything is still and quiet in the early morning hours before the turns arrive. I'll miss the dolphins that sometimes feed when the sun sets. I'll even miss the smell of sulfur from the rotting seaweed at the base of the shore. The way that it fills the house and penetrates our dreams while we sleep. Get rid of the celery and I'll wait in the truck, Henry says. Then it's time. I enter a thicket of trees off to the right of the truck. There are 3 key deer already waiting. I dump the bag of celery out at their feet and crouch down and pet each of them in turn. They allow me to, having long gotten over their skittishness. One of them raises his head and looks at me. Dark, blank eyes staring back. It almost feels as though he passes something to me. A shudder runs up my spine. He drops his head and continues eating. Good luck, little friends, I say, and walk to the truck and climb into the passenger seat. We watch the house grow smaller in the side mirrors until Henry pulls onto the main road and the house disappears. It's a Saturday. I wonder what's happening at the party without me. What they're saying about the way that I left and what they'll say on Monday when I'm not at school. I wish I could have said goodbye. I'll never see anyone I knew here ever again. I'll never speak to any of them. And they'll never know what I am. Or why I left. After a few months, or maybe a few weeks, none of them will probably ever think of me again. Before we get on the highway, Henry pulls over to gas up the truck. As he works the pump, I start looking through an atlas he keeps on the middle of the seat. We've had the atlas since we arrived on this planet. It has lines drawn to and from every place we've ever lived. At this point, there are lines crisscrossing all of the United States. We know we should get rid of it, but it's really the only piece of our life together that we have. Normal people have photos and videos and journals, we have the atlas. Picking it up and looking through it, I can see Henry has drawn a new line from Florida to Ohio. When I think of Ohio, I think of cows and corn and nice people. I know the license plate says. The heart of it all. What all is, I don't know, but I guess I'll find out. Henry gets back into the truck. He has bought a couple of sodas and a bag of chips. He pulls away and starts heading toward US 1, which will take us north. He reaches for the atlas. Do you think there are people in Ohio? I joke. He chuckles. I would imagine there are a few. And we might even get lucky and find cars and TV there, too. I nod. Maybe it won't be as bad as I think. What do you think of the name John Smith? I ask. Is that what you've settled on? I think so, I say. I've never been a John before, or a Smith. It doesn't get any more common than that. I would say it's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Smith. I smile. Yeah, I think I like John Smith. I'll create your forms when we stop. A mile later we are off the island and cruising across the bridge. The waters pass below us. They are calm and the moonlight is shimmering on the small waves, creating dapples of white in the crests. On the right is the ocean, on the left is the Gulf. It is, in essence, the same water, but with 2 different names. I have the urge to cry. But I don't. It's not that I'm necessarily sad to leave Florida. But I'm tired of running. I'm tired of dreaming up a new name every 6 months. Tired of new houses. New schools. I wonder if it'll ever be possible for us to stop. End of chapter 2. Chapter 3. We pull off for food and gas and new phones. We go to a truck stop, where we eat meatloaf and macaroni and cheese, which is one of the few things Henry acknowledges as being superior to anything we had on Lorien. As we eat, he creates new documents on his laptop, using our new names. He'll print them when we arrive, and as far as anyone will know, we'll be who we say we are. "You're sure about John Smith?" he says. "Yeah. You were born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama." I laugh. "How did you come up with that?" He smiles and motions towards two women sitting a few booths away. Both of them are extremely hot. One of them is wearing a t-shirt that reads, "We do it better in Tuscaloosa." "And that's where we're going next," he says. "As weird as it may sound, I hope we stay in Ohio for a long time." "Really? You like the idea of Ohio?" "I like the idea of making some friends, of going to the same school for more than a few months, of maybe actually having a life. I started to do it in Florida. It was sort of great, and for the first time since we've been on Earth, I felt almost normal. I want to find somewhere and stay somewhere." Henri looks thoughtful. "Have you looked at your scars today?" "No, why?" "Because this isn't about you. This is about the survival of our race, which was almost entirely obliterated, and about keeping you alive. Every time one of us dies, every time one of you, the guard, dies, our chances diminish. You're number 4, you're next in line. You have an entire race of vicious murderers hunting you. We're leaving at the first sign of trouble, and I'm not going to debate it with you." Henry drives the entire time. Between breaks and the creation of the new documents, it takes about 30 hours. I spend most of the time napping or playing video games. Because of my reflexes, I can master most of the games quickly. The longest it has taken me to beat any of them is about a day. I like the alien war and space games the best. I pretend I'm back on Lorien, fighting Mogadorians, cutting them down, turning them to ash. Henry thinks it's weird and tries to discourage me from doing it. He says we need to live in the real world, where war and death are a reality, not pretend. As I finish my latest game, I look up. I'm tired of sitting in the truck. The clock on the dash reads 7:58. I yawn, wipe my eyes. "How much farther?" "We're almost there," Henry says. It is dark out, but there is a pale glow to the west. We pass by farms with horses and cattle, then barren fields. And beyond those, it's trees as far as the eye can see. This is exactly what Henry wanted, a quiet place to go unnoticed. Once a week he scours the internet for 6, 7, 8 hours at a time to update a list of available homes around the country that fit his criteria: isolated, rural, immediate availability. He told me it took 4 tries, 1 call to South Dakota, 1 to New Mexico, 1 to Arkansas, until he had the rental where we're going to live now. A few minutes later we see scattered lights that announce the town. We pass a sign that reads, "Welcome to Paradise, Ohio, population 5,243. Wow, I say. This place is even smaller than where we stayed in Montana." Henry is smiling. "Who do you think it's paradise for? Cows, maybe? Scarecrows?" We pass by an old gas station, a car wash, a cemetery. Then the houses begin, clapboard houses spaced 30 or so feet apart. Halloween decorations hang in the windows of most of them. A sidewalk cuts through small yards leading to the front doors. A traffic circle sits in the center of town, and in the middle of it is a statue of a man on horseback holding a sword. Henri stops. We both look at it and laugh, though we're laughing because we hope no one else with swords ever shows up here. He continues around the circle, and once we're through it, the dashboard GPS system tells us to make a turn. We begin heading west, out of town. We drive for 4 miles before turning left onto a gravel road, then pass open-cut fields that are probably full of corn in the summer, then through a dense forest for about a mile. And then we find it, tucked away in overgrown vegetation, a rusted silver mailbox with black lettering painted on the side of it that reads 17 Old Mill Road. "The closest house is 2 miles away," he says, turning in. Weeds grow throughout the gravel drive, which is littered with potholes filled with tawny water. He comes to a stop and turns the truck off. "Whose car is that?" I ask, nodding to the black SUV Henry has just parked behind. I'm assuming the real estate agent's. The house stands silhouetted by trees. In the dark there is an eerie look to it, like whoever last lived in it was scared away, or was driven away, or ran away. I get out of the truck. The engine ticks and I can feel the heat coming off of it. I grab my bag from the bed and stand there holding it. "What do you think?" Henry asks. The house is one story. Wooden clapboard. Most of the white paint has been chipped away. One of the front windows is broken. The roof is covered with black shingles that look warped and brittle. 3 wooden stairs lead to a small porch covered with rickety chairs. The yard itself is long and shaggy. It's been a very long time since the grass was last mowed. "It looks like paradise," I say. We walk up together. As we do, a well-dressed blonde woman around Henri's age comes out of the doorway. She's wearing a business suit and is holding a clipboard and folder. A blackberry is clipped to the waist of her skirt. She smiles. "Mr. Smith?" "Yes," says Henry. "I'm Annie Hart, the agent from Paradise Realty. We spoke on the phone. I tried calling you earlier but your phone seemed to be turned off." "Yes, of course. The battery unfortunately died on the way here." "Ah. I just hate when that happens," she says, and walks towards us and shakes Henry's hand. She asks me my name and I tell her, though I am tempted, as I always am, to just say 4. As Henry signs the lease she asks me how old I am and tells me she has a daughter at the local high school about my age. She's very warm, friendly, and clearly loves to chat. Henry hands the lease back and the 3 of us walk into the house. Inside most of the furniture is covered with white sheets. Those that aren't covered are coated with a thick layer of dust and dead insects. The screens in the windows look brittle to the touch, and the walls are covered with cheap plywood paneling. There are 2 bedrooms, a modest-sized kitchen with lime green linoleum, 1 bathroom. The living room is large and rectangular, situated at the front of the house. There's a fireplace in the far corner. I walk through and toss my bag on the bed of the smaller room. There is a huge faded poster of a football player wearing a bright orange uniform. He's in the middle of throwing a pass, and it looks like he's about to get crushed by a massive man in a black and gold uniform. It says Bernie Kosar, quarterback, Cleveland Browns. "Come say goodbye to Mrs. Hart," Henry yells from the living room. Mrs. Hart is standing at the door with Henry. She tells me I should look for her daughter at school, that maybe we could be friends. I smile and say yes, that would be nice. After she leaves we immediately start unpacking the truck. Depending on how quickly we leave a place, we either travel very lightly, meaning the clothes on our back, Henry's laptop and the intricately carved Lorien chest that goes everywhere with us, or we bring a few things. Usually Henri's extra computers and equipment, which he uses to set up a security perimeter and search the web for news and events that might be related to us. This time we have the chest, the 2 high-powered computers, 4 TV monitors, and 4 cameras. We also have some clothes, though not many of the clothes we wore in Florida are appropriate for life in Ohio. Henry carries the chest to his room, and we lug all of the equipment into the basement, where he'll set it up so no visitors will see it. Once everything is inside, he starts placing the cameras and turning on the monitors. We won't have the internet here until the morning. But if you want to go to school tomorrow, I can print all of your new documents for you. If I stay, will I have to help you clean this place and finish the setup? Yes. I'll go to school, I say. Then you better get a good night's sleep. Chapter 4. Another new identity, another new school. I've lost track of how many there have been over the years. 15? 20? Always a small town, a small school, always the same routine. New students draw attention. Sometimes I question our strategy of sticking to the small towns because it's hard, almost impossible, to go unnoticed. But I know Henry's rationale: it is impossible for them to go unnoticed as well. The school is 3 miles away from our house. Henry drives me in the morning. It's smaller than most of the others I've attended and is unimpressive looking, 1 story, long and low slung. A mural of a pirate with a knife between his teeth covers the outside wall beside the front door. "So you're a pirate now?" Henry says beside me. "It looks like it," I reply. "You know the drill," he says. "This ain't my first rodeo. Don't show your intelligence. It'll make them resent you." "Wouldn't dream of it. Don't stand out or draw too much attention. Just a fly on the wall. And don't hurt anybody. You're far stronger than they are." I know. Most importantly, always be ready. Ready to leave at a moment's notice. What's in your backpack? 5 days worth of dried fruit and nuts. Spare socks and thermal underwear. Rain jacket. A handheld GPS. A knife disguised as a pen. On you at all times. He takes a deep breath. And keep an eye out for signs. Your legacies are going to appear any day now. Hide them at all costs and call me immediately. I know, Henry. Any day, John, he reiterates. If your fingers start to disappear, or if you start to float, or shake violently, if you lose muscular control or begin to hear voices even when nobody is talking. Anything at all, you call. I pat my bag. Got my phone right here. I'll be waiting here after school. Good luck in there, kiddo, he says. I smile at him. He is 50 years old, which means he was 40 when we arrived. Being his age made for a harder transition. He still speaks with a strong Lorien accent that is often mistaken for French. It was a good alibi in the beginning, so he named himself Henry, and he has stuck with it ever since, just changing his last name to match mine. Off I go to rule the school, I say. Be good. I walk towards the building. As is the case with most high schools, there are crowds of kids hanging around outside. They're divided into their cliques, the jocks and the cheerleaders, the band kids carrying instruments, the brains in their glasses with their textbooks and Blackberries, the stoners off to one side, oblivious to everyone else. One kid, gangly with thick glasses, stands alone. He's wearing a black NASA t-shirt and jeans, and can't weigh more than 100 pounds. He has a handheld telescope and is scanning the sky, which is mostly obscured by clouds. I notice a girl taking pictures, moving easily from one group to the next. She's shockingly beautiful with straight blonde hair past her shoulders, ivory skin, high cheekbones, and soft blue eyes. Everyone seems to know her and says hello to her, and no one objects to her taking their picture. She sees me, smiles and waves. I wonder why and turn to see if someone is behind me. There are 2 kids discussing math homework, but no one else. I turn back around. The girl walks towards me, smiling. I've never seen a girl so good-looking, much less spoken to one, and I've definitely never had one wave and smile as if we're friends. I'm immediately nervous, and start blushing. But I'm also suspicious, as I've been trained to be. As she nears me, she lifts the camera and starts snapping pictures. I raise my hands to block my face. She lowers the camera and smiles. Don't be shy. I'm not. Just trying to protect your lens. My face might break it. She laughs. With that scowl it might. Try smiling. I smile, slightly. I'm so nervous I feel like I'm going to explode. I can feel my neck burning, my hands getting warm. That's not a real smile, she says, teasingly. A smile involves showing your teeth. I smile broadly and she takes pictures. I usually don't allow anyone to take my picture. If it ended up on the internet, or in a newspaper, it would make finding me much easier. The 2 times it happened, Henry was furious, got hold of the pictures, and destroyed them. If he knew I was doing this now, I'd be in huge trouble. I can't help it, though, this girl is so pretty and so charming. As she's taking my picture, a dog comes running up to me. It's a beagle with tan floppy ears, white legs and chest, a slender black body. He's thin and dirty as if he's been living on his own. He rubs against my leg, whines, tries to get my attention. The girl thinks it's cute and has me kneel down so she can take a picture of me with the dog. As soon as she starts snapping shots, he backs away. Whenever she tries again, he moves further away. She finally gives up and shoots a few more of me. The dog sits about 30 feet away watching us. "Do you know that dog?" she asks. "Never seen him before." "He sure likes you. You're John, right?" She holds out her hand. "Yeah," I say. "How do you know?" "I'm Sarah Hart. My mother is your real estate agent. She told me you'd probably be starting school today, and I should look out for you. You're the only new kid to show up today." I laugh. "Yeah, I met your mum. She was nice." "You're gonna shake my hand?" She's still holding her hand out. I smile and take it, and it is literally one of the best feelings I've ever had. "Wow," she says. "What?" "Your hand feels hot. Really hot, like you have a fever or something." "I don't think so." She lets go. "Maybe you're just warm-blooded." "Yeah, maybe." A bell rings in the distance and Sarah tells me that it's the warning bell. We have 5 minutes to get to class. We say goodbye and I watch her walk away. A moment later, something hits the back of my elbow. I turn and a group of football players, all wearing Letterman jackets, sweep by me. One of them is glaring at me and I realize that he hit me with his backpack as he walked past. I doubt it was an accident and I start to follow them. I know I'm not going to do anything, even though I could. I just don't like bullies. As I do, the kid in the NASA shirt walks next to me. "I know you're new, so I'll fill you in," he says. "On what?" I ask. "That's Mark James. He's a big deal around here. His dad is the town sheriff and he's the star of the football team. He used to date Sarah when she was a cheerleader, but she quit cheerleading and dumped him. He hasn't gotten over it. I wouldn't get involved if I were you." "Thanks." The kid hurries away. I make my way to the principal's office so I can register for classes and get started. I turn and look back to see if the dog is still around. He is, sitting in the same spot, watching me. The principal's name is Mr. Harris. He's fat and mostly bald, except for a few long hairs at the back and sides of his head. His belly reaches over his belt. His eyes are small and beady, set too close together. He grins at me from across the desk, and his smile seems to swallow his eyes. "So you're a sophomore from Santa Fe?" he asks. I nod, say yes even though we've never been to Santa Fe, or New Mexico, for that matter. A simple lie to keep from being traced. That explains the tan. "What brings you to Ohio?" "My dad's job." Henry isn't my father, but I always say he is to allay suspicion. In truth he is my keeper, or what would be better understood on Earth, as my guardian. On Lorien there were 2 types of citizens, those who develop legacies, or powers, which can be extremely varied, anything from invisibility to the ability to read minds, from being able to fly to using natural forces like fire, wind or lightning. Those with the legacies are called the Guard, and those without are called Sipan, or Keepers. I am a member of the Guard. Henry is a Sipan. Every Guard is assigned a Sipan at an early age. Sipans help us understand our planet's history and develop our powers. The Sipan and the Guard, one group to run the planet, the other group to defend it. Mr. Harris nods. "And what does he do?" "He's a writer. He wanted to live in a small, quiet town to finish what he's working on, I say, which is our standard cover story. Mr. Harris nods and squints his eyes. You look like a strong young man. Are you planning on playing sports here? I wish I could. I have asthma, sir, I say, my usual excuse to avoid any situation that might betray my strength and speed. I'm sorry to hear that. We're always looking for able athletes for the football team, he says, and casts his eyes to the shelf on the wall, on top of which a football trophy sits engraved with last year's date. We won the Pioneer Conference, he says, and beams with pride. He reaches over and pulls 2 sheets of paper from a file cabinet beside his desk and hands them to me. The first is my student schedule with a few open slots. The second is a list of the available electives. I choose classes and fill them in, then hand everything back. He gives me a sort of orientation, talking for what seems like hours, going over every page of the student manual with painstaking detail. One bell rings, then another. When he finally finishes, he asks if I have any questions. I say no. Excellent. There is a half-hour left of second period, and you've chosen astronomy with Mrs. Burton. She's a great teacher, one of our very best. She won an award from the state once, signed by the governor himself. That's great, I say. After Mr. Harris struggles to free himself from his chair, we leave his office and walk down the hall. His shoes click upon the newly waxed floor. The air smells of fresh paint and cleaner. Lockers line the walls. Many are covered with banners supporting the football team. There can't be more than 20 classrooms in the whole building. I count them as we pass. Here we are, Mr. Harris says. He extends his hand. I shake it. We're happy to have you. I like to think of us as a close-knit family. I'm glad to welcome you to it. Thank you, I say. Mr. Harris opens the door and sticks his head in the classroom. Only then do I realize that I'm a little nervous, that a somewhat dizzy feeling is creeping in. My right leg is shaking, there are butterflies in the pit of my stomach. I don't understand why. Surely it's not the prospect of walking into my first class. I've done it far too many times to still feel the effect of nerves. I take a deep breath and try to shake them away. Mrs. Burton, sorry to interrupt. Your new student is here. Oh, great. Send him in, she says in a high-pitched voice of enthusiasm. Mr. Harris holds open the door and I walk through. The classroom is perfectly square, filled with 25 people, give or take, sitting at rectangular desks about the size of kitchen tables, 3 students to each. All eyes are on me. I look back at them before looking at Mrs. Burton. She is somewhere around 60, wearing a pink wool sweater and red plastic glasses attached to a chain around her neck. She smiles widely, her hair graying and curly. My palms are sweaty and my face feels flushed. I hope it isn't red. Mr. Harris closes the door. And what is your name? She asks. In my unsettled mood I almost say Daniel Jones but catch myself. I take a deep breath and say, John Smith. Great. And where are you from? Flo, I begin, but then catch myself again before the word fully forms. Santa Fe. Class, let's give him a warm welcome. Everybody claps. Mrs. Burton motions for me to sit in the open seat in the middle of the room between 2 other students. I am relieved she doesn't ask any more questions. She turns around to go to her desk and I begin walking down the aisle, straight towards Mark James, who is sitting at a table with Sarah Hart. As I pass, he sticks his foot out and trips me. I lose my balance but stay upright. Snickers filter throughout the room. Mrs. Burton whips around. What happened? She asks. I don't answer her, and instead glare at Mark. Every school has one, a tough guy, a bully, whatever you want to call him, but never has one materialized this quickly. His hair is black, full of hair gel, carefully styled so it goes in all directions. He has meticulously trimmed sideburns, stubble on his face, bushy eyebrows over a set of dark eyes. From his letterman jacket I see that he is a senior, and his name is written in gold cursive stitching above the ear. Our eyes stay locked, and the class emits a taunting groan. I look to my seat 3 desks away, then I look back at Mark. I could literally break him in half if I wanted to. I could throw him into the next county. If he tried to run away, and got into a car, I could outrun his car and put it in the top of a tree. But aside from that being an extreme overreaction, Henry's words echo in my mind. Don't stand out or draw too much attention. I know that I should follow his advice and ignore what has just happened, as I always have in the past. That is what we're good at, blending into the environment and living within its shadows. But I feel slightly off, uneasy, and before I have a chance to think twice, the question is already asked. Did you want something? Mark looks away and glances around the rest of the room, scoots his weight up the chair, then looks back at me. What are you talking about? He asks. You stuck your foot out when I passed. And you bumped into me outside. I thought you might have wanted something. What's going on? Mrs. Burton asks behind me. I look over my shoulder at her. Nothing, I say. I turn back to Mark. Well? His hands tighten around the desk but he remains silent. Our eyes stay locked until he sighs and looks away. That's what I thought, I say down at him, and continue walking. The other students aren't sure how to respond and most of them are still staring when I take my seat between a red-headed girl with freckles and an overweight guy who looks at me with his mouth agape. Mrs. Burton stands at the head of the class. She seems a little flustered, but then shrugs it off and describes why there are rings around Saturn, and how they're made mostly of ice particles and dust. After a while I tune her out and look at the other students. A whole new group of people that I'll yet again try to keep at a distance. It's always a fine line, having just enough interaction with them to remain mysterious without becoming strange and thus sticking out. I've already done a horrible job of that today. I take a deep breath and slowly exhale. I still have butterflies in my stomach, still the nagging shake in my leg. My hands feel warmer. Mark James sits 3 tables in front of me. He turns once and looks at me, then whispers something into Sarah's ear. She turns around. She seems cool, but the fact that she used to date him and is sitting with him makes me wonder. She gives me a warm smile. I want to smile back but I'm frozen. Mark again tries to whisper to her but she shakes her head and pushes him away. My hearing is much better than human hearing if I focus it, but I'm so flustered by her smile that I don't. I wish I could have heard what was said. I open and close my hands. My palms are sweaty and beginning to burn. Another deep breath. My vision is blurring. 5 minutes pass, then 10. Mrs. Burton is still talking but I don't hear what she is saying. I squeeze my fists shut, then reopen them. When I do my breath catches in my throat. A slight glow is coming from my right palm. I look down at it, dumbfounded, amazed. After a few seconds the glow begins to brighten. I close my fists. My initial fear is that something else has happened to one of the others. But what could happen? We can't be killed out of order. That is the way the charm works. But does that mean that some other harm can't befall them? Has somebody's right hand been cut off? I have no way of knowing. But if something had happened, I would have felt it in the scars on my ankles. And only then does it dawn on me. My first legacy must be forming. I pull my phone out of my bag, and send Henry a text that says "me," though I meant to type "come." I'm too dizzy to send anything else. I close my fists and place them in my lap. They're burning and shaking. I open my hands. My left palm is bright red, my right is still glowing. I glance at the clock on the wall and see that class is almost over. If I can get out of here I can find an empty room and call Henri and ask him what's going on. I start counting the seconds, 60, 59, 58. It feels like something is going to explode in my hands. I focus on the counting. 40, 39. They're tingling now, as though little needles are being stuck into my palms. 28, 27. I open my eyes and stare ahead, focusing on Sarah with the hope that looking at her will distract me. 15, 14. Seeing her makes it worse. The needles feel like nails now. Nails that have been put in a furnace and heated until they're glowing. 8, 7. The bell rings and in an instant I'm up and out of the room, rushing past the other students. I'm feeling dizzy, unsteady on my feet. I continue down the hall and have no idea where to go. I can feel someone following me. I pull my schedule from my back pocket and check my locker number. As luck would have it, my locker is just to my right. I stop at it and lean my head against the metal door. I shake my head, realizing that in my rush to get out of the classroom I left behind my bag with my phone inside of it. And then someone pushes me. "What's up, tough guy?" I stumble a few steps, look back. Mark is standing there, smiling at me. "Something wrong?" he asks. "No," I reply. My head is spinning. I feel like I'm going to pass out. And my hands are on fire. Whatever is happening couldn't be happening at a worse time. He pushes me again. "Not so tough without any teachers around, are you?" I'm too unbalanced to stay standing, and I trip over my own feet and fall to the ground. Sarah steps in front of Mark. "Leave him alone," she says. "This has nothing to do with you," he says. "Right. You see a new kid talking to me and you try immediately to start a fight with him. This is just one example of why we aren't together anymore." I start to stand up. Sarah reaches down to help me, and as soon as she touches me, the pain in my hands flares up and it feels like lightning strikes through my head. I turn around and start rushing away, in the opposite direction from the astronomy class. I know that everyone will think I'm a coward for running, but I feel like I'm about to pass out. I'll thank Sarah, and deal with Mark, later. Right now I just need to find a room with a lock on the door. I get to the end of the hall, which intersects with the school's main entrance. I think back to Mr. Harris's orientation, which included where the various rooms were located in the school. If I remember correctly, the auditorium, band rooms, and art rooms are at the end of this hall. I run towards them as fast as I can in my current state. Behind me I can hear Mark yelling to me, and Sarah yelling at him. I open the first door I find, and shut it behind me. Thankfully there is a lock, which I click into place. I'm in a dark room. Strips of negatives hang on drying lines. I collapse onto the floor. My head spins and my hands are burning. Since first seeing the light, I have kept my hands clenched into fists. I look down at them now and see my right hand is still glowing, pulsating. I start to panic. I sit on the floor, sweat stinging my eyes. Both hands are in terrible pain. I knew to expect my legacies, but I had no idea it would include this. I open my hands and my right palm is shining brightly, the light beginning to concentrate. My left is dimly flickering, the burning sensation almost unbearable. I wish Henri was here. I hope he's on his way. I close my eyes and fold my arms across my body. I rock back and forth on the floor, everything inside of me in pain. I don't know how much time is passing. 1 minute? 10 minutes? The bell rings, signaling the start of the next period. I can hear people talking outside the door. The door shakes a couple times, but it's locked and nobody will be able to get in. I just keep rocking, eyes closed tightly. More knocks begin to fall on the door. Muffled voices that I can't understand. I open my eyes and can see that the glow from my hands has lit up the entire room. I squeeze my hands into fists to try and stop the light, but it streams out between my fingers. Then the door really starts shaking. What will they think of the light in my hands? There is no hiding it. How will I explain it? John? Open the door. It's me, a voice says. Relief floods through me. Henry's voice, the only voice in the whole world that I want to hear. Chapter 5. I crawl to the door and unlock it. It swings open. Henry is covered in dirt, wearing gardening clothes as though he had been working outside on the house. I'm so happy to see him that I have the urge to jump up and wrap my arms around him, and I try to, but I'm too dizzy and I fall back onto the floor. Is everything okay in there? Asks Mr. Harris, who is standing behind Henry. Everything is fine. Just give us a minute, please, Henry says back. Do I need to call an ambulance? No. The door shuts. Henry looks down at my hands. The light in the right one is shining brightly, though the left dimly flickers as though trying to gain confidence in itself. Henry smiles widely, his face shining like a beacon. Thank Lorien, he sighs, then pulls a pair of leather gardening gloves from his back pocket. What dumb luck that I've been working in the yard. Put these on. I do, and they completely hide the light. Mr. Harris opens the door and sticks his head through. Mr. Smith? Is everything okay? Yes, everything is fine. Just give us 30 seconds, Henry says, then looks back to me. Your principal medals. I take a deep breath and exhale. I understand what is happening, but why this? Your first legacy. I know that, but why the lights? We'll talk about it in the truck. Can you walk? I think so. He helps me up. I am unsteady, still shaking. I grab hold of his forearm for support. I have to get my bag before we leave, I say. Where is it? I left it in the classroom. What number? 17. Let's get you to the truck and I'll go get it. I drape my right arm over his shoulders. He supports my weight by putting his left arm around my waist. Even though the second bell has rung, I can still hear people in the hall. You need to walk as straight and as normal as you can. I take a deep breath. I try to gather any bit of strength I might have on reserve to tackle the long walk out of the school. Let's do this, I say. I wipe the sweat from my forehead and follow Henry out of the darkroom. Mr. Harris is still in the hallway. Just a bad case of asthma, Henry tells him, and walks past. A crowd of 20 or so people are still in the hallway, and most of them are wearing cameras around their necks, waiting to get into the darkroom for photography class. Thankfully Sarah isn't among them. I walk as steadily as I can, one foot in front of the other. The school's exit is 100 feet away. That is a lot of steps. People are whispering. What a freak. Does he even go to school here? I hope so. He's cute. What do you think he was doing in the darkroom to make his face so red? I hear, and everyone laughs. Just like we can focus our hearing, we can close it off, which helps when you're trying to concentrate amidst noise and confusion. So I shut out the noise and follow closely behind Henry. Each step feels like 10, but finally we reach the door. Henri holds it open for me and I try to walk on my own to his truck, which is parked up front. For the last 20 steps I drape my arm around his shoulders again. He opens the truck door and I scoot in. You said 17? Yes. You should have kept it with you. It's the little mistakes that lead to big mistakes. We can't make any. I know. I'm sorry. He shuts the door and walks back into the building. I hunch over in the seat and try to slow my breathing. I can still feel the sweat on my forehead. I sit up and flip down the sun visor so I can look into the mirror. My face is redder than I thought, my eyes a little watery. But through the pain and exhaustion, I smile. Finally, I think. After years of waiting, After years of my only defense against the Mogadorians being intellect and stealth, my first legacy has arrived. Henry comes out of the school carrying my bag. He walks around the truck, opens the door, tosses my bag on the seat. "Thank you," I say. "No problem." When we're out of the lot, I remove the gloves and take a closer look at my hands. The light in my right hand is beginning to concentrate itself into a beam like a flashlight, only brighter. The burning is beginning to lessen. My left hand still flickers dimly. "You should keep those on until we're home," Henry says. I put the gloves back on and look over at him. He is smiling proudly. "Been a shit long wait," he says. "Huh?" I ask. He looks over. "A shit long wait," he says again. "For your legacies." I laugh. Of all the things Henry has learned to master while on Earth, profanity is not one of them. "A damn long wait," I correct him. "Yeah, that's what I said." He turns down our road. "So, what next? Does this mean I'll be able to shoot lasers from my hands or what?" He grins. "It's nice to think so, but no." "Well, what am I going to do with light? When I'm getting chased, am I going to turn and flash it in their eyes? Like that's supposed to make them cower from me or something?" "Patience," he says. "You aren't supposed to understand it yet. Let's just get home." And then I remember something that nearly makes me jump out of my seat. "Does this mean we'll finally open the chest?" He nods and smiles. "Very soon." "Hell, yes," I say. The intricately carved wooden chest has haunted me my entire life. It's a brittle-looking box with the Lorien symbol on its side that Henry has remained completely secretive about. He's never told me what's in it, and it's impossible to open, and I know, because I've tried more times than I can count, never with any luck. It's held shut with a padlock with no discernible slot for a key. When we get home, I can tell that Henry has been working. The 3 chairs from the front porch have been cleared away and all the windows are open. Inside, the sheets over the furniture have been removed, some of the surfaces wiped clean. I set my bag atop the table in the living room and open it. A wave of frustration passes over me. "The son of a bitch," I say. "What?" "My phone is missing." "Where is it?" "I had a slight disagreement this morning with a kid named Mark James. He probably took it." "John, you were in school for an hour and a half. How in the hell did you have a disagreement already? You know better." "It's high school. I'm the new kid. It's easy." Henry removes his phone from his pocket and dials my number. Then he snaps his phone shut. "It's turned off," he says. "Of course it is." He stares at me. "What happened?" he asks in that voice I recognize, the voice he uses when pondering another move. "Nothing. Just a stupid argument. I probably dropped it on the floor when I put it into my bag," I say, even though I know I didn't. I wasn't in the best frame of mind. It's probably waiting for me in Lost and Found. He looks around the house and sighs. "Did anyone see your hands?" I look at him. His eyes are red, even more bloodshot than they were when he dropped me off. His hair is tousled and he has a slumped look as though he may collapse in exhaustion at any moment. He last slept in Florida 2 days ago. I'm not sure how he is even still standing. Nobody did. You were in school for an hour and a half. Your first legacy developed, you were nearly in a fight, and you left your bag in a classroom. That's not exactly blending in. It was nothing. Certainly not a big enough deal to move to Idaho, or Kansas, or wherever the hell our next place is going to be. Henry narrows his eyes, pondering what he just witnessed and trying to decide whether it's enough to justify leaving. "Now is not the time to be careless," he says. "There are arguments in every single school every single day. I promise you, they aren't going to track us because some bully messed with the new kid. The new kid's hands don't light up in every school." I sigh. "Henry, You look like you're about to die. Take a nap. We can decide after you've had some sleep. We have a lot to talk about. I've never seen you this tired before. Sleep a few hours. We'll talk after. He nods. A nap would probably do me some good. Henry goes into his bedroom and closes the door. I walk outside, pace around the yard for a bit. The sun is behind the trees with a cool wind blowing. The gloves are still on my hands. I take them off and tuck them into my back pocket. My hands are the same as before. Truth be told, only half of me is thrilled that my first legacy has finally arrived after so many years of impatiently waiting. The other half of me is crushed. Our constant moving has worn me down, and now it'll be impossible to blend in or to stay in one place for any period of time. It'll be impossible to make friends or feel like I fit in. I'm sick of the fake names and the lies. I'm sick of always looking over my shoulder to see if I'm being followed. I reach down and feel the 3 scars on my right ankle. 3 circles that represent the 3 dead. We are bound to each other by more than mere race. As I feel the scars, I try to imagine who they were, whether they were boys or girls, where they were living, how old they were when they died. I try to remember the other kids on the ship with me and give each of them numbers. I think about what it would be like to meet them, hang out with them. What it might have been like if we were still on Lorien. What it might be like if the fate of our entire race wasn't dependent on the survival of so few of us. What it might be like if we weren't all facing death at the hands of our enemies. It's terrifying to know that I'm next. But we've stayed ahead of them by moving, running. Even though I'm sick of the running, I know it's the only reason we're still alive. If we stop, they will find us. And now that I'm next in line, they have undoubtedly stepped up the search. Surely they must know we are growing stronger, coming into our legacies. And then there is the other ankle and the scar to be found there, formed when the Loric charm was cast in those precious moments before leaving Lorien. It's the brand that binds us all together. End of chapter 3.